Let's talk about hell. Not the one you think you know. The one with the fire and the brimstone, the little red demons poking at sinners in the arse with tridents, the smell of sulfur, Hitler getting a pineapple shoved up somewhere unspeakable on an hourly schedule. No, let's talk about real hell. And I guess tangential to that, let's talk about where your idea of hell actually comes from. Because I have bad news for you, my brother in Christ. You did not get that from the Bible. You actually got it from a 14th century epic Italian poet. A man with an axe to grind. Dante Alighieri. A man so petty, so vindictive, that he used his epic masterwork, Inferno, not just to describe hell, to describe the underworld, but to settle his personal scores. If you pissed off Dante in real life, well, congratulations, you are condemned to be eternally tortured as a character in his elaborate revenge porn fantasy. The real hell, the one that Christ actually speaks about, it's something else entirely. Christ speaks of Gehenna, which was a real place. It was a literal burning trash heap outside of Jerusalem where they combusted garbage to get rid of it. Doubtless a metaphor for spiritual purification. That's what Jesus compared the afterlife to, a landfill. And when Jesus speaks, he speaks of Hades, the Greek underworld, a shadowy realm, a waiting room with extremely bad lighting, where people are shades, ghosts of their former selves. Unless, of course, they're lucky enough to be heroes, where they would go to the Elysian fields. But no, Christ talks about a descent into Hades, and he talks about going into Hades for a specific reason. He goes there to liberate the souls that are trapped there. So where do we get this idea of a flaming pit? Where do we get this idea of demonic bureaucracy, 9 concentric circles, each sorted by a more anally retentive punishment as we descend downwards? Well, we get it from Dante. We get it from Dante's medieval fucking fan fiction, which for some reason the Catholic Church treats as gospel. I swear to God, they would canonize Dante if they could get away with it. In some respects, particularly when it comes to hell, the Catholic Church holds Dante in a higher regard than Jesus Christ. And modern Christianity eats Inferno up like it's some kind of sacred text, some kind of divine revelation. Now, people say that they've read the Divine Comedy, and what they mean is they've read Inferno. Seldom have people actually perused the pages of Purgatorio or Paradiso. And to be honest, it's understandable. Paradiso is basically just Dante mogging and showing off that he knows a lot about astronomy. The real juice, the real drama, the real detail, gore, blood, brutality is in Inferno, where Dante, a man who was politically exiled in his own time, gets to LARP with power fantasies and condemn all of his haters, all of his enemies, corrupt clergymen, corrupt popes, but also his own ex-girlfriends and former best friends who betrayed him. They're all written into this idea of hell, which the church loves. because it's terrifying. Have you ever noticed how a Christian preacher talks about hell? Have you ever noticed how a Christian preacher will often talk about hell with a hell of a lot more enthusiasm than they'll talk about heaven? And they love it. They describe it in detail with the flair of an autistic man reciting his favorite movie monologue. The flames, the torture, the agony, it's delicious to them. But ask the same pastors, reverends, preachers, ask them to describe heaven. It's nice, it's going to be harps, clouds. Because the church has spent centuries perfecting its hell propaganda, barely given heaven a second thought. I guess it's because ultimately you read Inferno, it's more fun. It's more fun. Nobody wants to read a travel guide to paradise. We want screaming, suffering, political corruption. I want to see Pope Gregory boiling in tar. But when I imagine Dante in my mind, I can't help but see a disjointed, disgruntled, nose out of joint, medieval, bereft nobleman with a wall of red string connecting members of the Medici family to various bishops and just being like, yeah, this is how they wronged me. And you know what the real kicker is? The real kicker is if modern Christians actually applied Dante's logic, well, fuck me, they would be the first ones in their own pit. Think about corrupt televangelists hoarding wealth. Think about the average Christian and how much of a judgmental, finger-wagging hypocrite they are. Love to point out the rules holier than thou whilst breaking all of the fucking rules themselves. Dante would love to have thrown these people into his infernal penal system. I don't know what it is about modern Christians that makes them think that they're getting into the VIP lounge of heaven, but fuck, I mean, nah, you'd be getting chewed up and spat out by Satan himself. The Greek idea of Hades, it's not a good place. It's a bleak place. It's a dark place. It's not a place you would want to go. But what it isn't is personal. What it isn't is specifically tailored to you as the protagonist of your own life, suffering for your specific punishments. Does Christ not say that all sins are equal? Why then have we ranked hell? You know, Dante puts lust and gluttony as the first circle of hell. Well, actually, no, they're not the first circle. The first circle of hell is a kind of weird limbo with pagans in it, with what Dante calls virtuous pagans in it. People like, Aristotle and Homer and Virgil, because they didn't really do anything wrong. In fact, they had much more noble, much more exemplary lives than Dante. But they're pagans, so of course they couldn't have heard the word of Christ, and by Dante's rigid, dogmatic, Catholic dogma, of course they can't go to heaven, so they must be in the first layer of hell. But it's kind of a waiting room. They don't suffer there so much as just linger in torment, which if you think about it, is punishment enough. But whatever. The true first layer is the lust layer. And then after that, it's gluttony. Because Dante sees lust and gluttony as the kind of gateway drugs of spiritual excess. The lust isn't too bad on its own. Gluttony isn't too bad on its own. But careful, because it might lead to other sins. Graver sins. Bigger spiritual problems. This is not what Christ taught. This hierarchy of sin is not found in the Bible. It's Dante that gives us our 7 deadly sins. It's Dante that gives us our some sins are weightier than others. Then we have our popular image of Satan. A monster, horned monster, gargantuan and grotesque. A leviathan of a beast consuming mortal souls. I don't remember Satan being depicted as such in the Bible. Last time I checked, when he's not in his corporeal serpent form, Satan is beautiful, is a beautiful androgynous looking angel. And you know, if you were to see an angel in its earthly form, it's just a bunch of spinning eyes and wheels within flaming wheels that you can't even comprehend because of your puny mortal brain. But Satan is never described anywhere in the Bible like he is in Inferno. Now, how do the Simpsons picture hell, picture the devil? I think more key than anything is the idea of judgment over the idea of redemption. Because really, that's what Christians should preach and should believe in. It's what Christ taught. It's redemption. But you're out here acting like morally absolute fundamentalist Muslims about this shit. Because you'll prefer punishment to redemption. So look, next time some holier-than-thou Christian tells you that you're going to hell, just ask them. Just say, whose hell? Christ's or Dante's?